Rosa looked out her small kitchen window and felt her heart sink. The corn plants in her tiny backyard were dying. What used to be green and healthy just 2 months ago now looked like brown sticks poking out of cracked earth. She rubbed her tired eyes and tried to remember the last time it had really rained. Her 3 children were still sleeping in the next room. 8-year-old Anna, 6-year-old Diego, and little Mia, who was only 1.5 years old. Rosa had been giving them smaller and smaller meals each day, hoping they wouldn't notice. But children always notice when their bellies aren't full. The 34-year-old mother had been working on farms since she was a teenager. Her hands were rough from years of picking vegetables, planting seeds, and harvesting crops under the hot sun. She knew how to work hard, and she had never been afraid of getting dirty. But this year was different. This year there was no work. The drought had hit their valley like a slow-moving monster. First, the small streams dried up. Then the community well started running low. One by one, the farms where Rosa used to find work began to fail. The owners would shake their heads sadly when she came looking for jobs. "Sorry, Rosa," they would say. "No crops means no work." Rosa walked to her kitchen cabinet and opened it slowly. Inside were 3 cans of beans, half a bag of rice, and some crackers that were probably stale, maybe enough food for 2 more days if she was very careful. She had been putting off this moment, but now she had to face the truth. Her children were going hungry, and she was running out of options. She remembered yesterday when Anna had asked for seconds at dinner. Rosa had to tell her there wasn't any more, watching her daughter's face fall. Diego had been so tired lately, probably because he wasn't getting enough to eat. And baby Mia had been crying more than usual. Even at her young age, she could feel that something was wrong. Rosa had tried everything she could think of. She had gone to the food bank in town, but they had run out of supplies weeks ago. Too many families were in the same situation. She had asked relatives for help, but they were struggling too. Her sister had 3 kids of her own and could barely feed them. Her elderly parents lived on a tiny pension that barely covered their own needs. The proud mother had always taken care of herself and her children. When Mia's father left before she was born, Rosa didn't complain. When Diego got sick last winter, and the medical bills piled up, she worked extra hours to pay them off. When Anna needed school supplies, Rosa would skip her own meals to make sure her daughter had what she needed. But this was different. This felt impossible. She sat down at her small kitchen table and put her head in her hands. The wooden chair creaked under her weight. Everything in their tiny house seemed to be falling apart, just like their lives. The roof leaked when it did rain. The old refrigerator made strange noises. The floorboards were loose in several places, but Rosa had always made it work somehow. Through her window, she could see across the valley to where the Henderson family owned their large farm. Even from this distance, she could tell their crops were still green. They had money for irrigation systems and deep wells. Their fields looked like a green island in the middle of all the brown, dying land around them. Rosa had worked for the Henderson family before, during busy harvest seasons. They were fair people who paid on time and didn't treat their workers badly. Mr. Henderson was quiet but respectful. His wife was kind and sometimes sent leftover food home with the workers. They had built their farm over 3 generations, and everyone knew they were successful. But Rosa had never asked anyone for help before. The idea of walking up to their door and admitting she couldn't feed her children made her stomach twist with embarrassment. What would they think of her? What if they said no? What if they looked down on her? She heard little footsteps behind her and turned to see Anna standing in the doorway. Her daughter's clothes were too big now. Rosa realized with a shock that Anna had lost weight. Her beautiful little girl's cheeks weren't as round as they used to be. "Mama, I'm hungry," Anna said in a small voice. Rosa's heart broke a little more. She got up and hugged her daughter tightly. "I know, sweetheart. Mama's going to fix everything, I promise." But as she held Anna close, Rosa wondered how she was going to keep that promise. She looked out the window again at the Henderson farm, in the distance. Their green field seemed to mock her desperation. Yet maybe, just maybe, they were also her answer. That night, After putting the children to bed with crackers and the last of the milk, Rosa made a decision that would change everything. She was going to walk to the Henderson farm tomorrow morning. She wasn't going to beg or ask for charity. She was going to offer something instead. Her strong hands, her knowledge of farming, her willingness to work harder than anyone else. She had skills. She had experience. She had everything to offer except the one thing she needed most, a chance to use those skills to feed her children. Tomorrow, she would ask for that chance. Tomorrow, she would swallow her pride and do whatever it took to make sure her babies didn't go hungry anymore. As Rosa finally fell asleep that night, she didn't know that her decision would soon change not just her own life, but the lives of many others in their small community. The sun was just coming up when Rosa started her walk to the Henderson farm. Baby Mia was heavy in her arms, but Rosa didn't have anyone to watch her. Anna and Diego walked beside their mother, their small hands holding tight to her dress. The 2-mile walk felt longer than usual because the children's legs were weak from not eating enough. Rosa's heart was beating fast as they got closer to the big farm. She could see Mr. Henderson in the distance, checking something near his irrigation pipes. The green rows of vegetables looked like they belonged in a different world compared to the dry, dead land everywhere else. She stopped walking for a moment and looked down at her children. Anna's school dress was clean but faded from too many washings. Diego's shoes had holes in them, but Rosa had colored over the worn spots with a black marker. Little Mia's diaper was the last one Rosa had. After today, she didn't know what she would do. "Mama, why are we here?" Anna asked, looking around at the big farm with wide eyes. Rosa knelt down so she was at eye level with her daughter. "Mama needs to talk to Mr. Henderson about work. You and Diego need to be very good and quiet, okay?" Diego nodded seriously. Even at 6 years old, he seemed to understand that something important was happening. Rosa took a deep breath and started walking. Again, each step felt harder than the last. She had never asked anyone for help before. Her grandmother had always told her, "Rosa, we may be poor, but we have our dignity. Never beg. Always offer something in return." Mr. Henderson looked up as they approached. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. Rosa had always respected him because he treated his workers fairly and never yelled like some of the other farm owners in the valley. "Good morning, Rosa," he said, putting down his tools. His voice was surprised but not unfriendly. "What brings you out here so early?" Rosa shifted Mia to her other arm and tried to make her voice sound strong. But when she opened her mouth, the words came out shaky. "Mr. Henderson, I need to ask you something." She could see him looking at her children, noticing how thin they had gotten. Anna was hiding behind Rosa's leg, suddenly shy. Diego was staring at his feet. Baby Mia had stopped her usual babbling and seemed to sense the tension. "Of course," Mr. Henderson said gently. "What can I do for you?" Rosa had practiced what she would say during the long walk. She had planned to sound confident and businesslike. But standing there with her hungry children looking at this man who had the power to save them or turn them away, she felt her carefully planned words disappear. Instead, what came out was the truth, raw and desperate. "I'll work your fields. Human. Just feed my hungry children." The words hung in the air between them. Rosa had called him human instead of Mr. Henderson, without thinking. It was what she said when she was being completely honest, when all the polite social rules fell away and only the basic truth remained. One human being asking another for help. Mr. Henderson's face changed. Rosa saw surprise, then something that looked like pain, then a deep understanding. He looked at Anna clinging to her mother's dress, at Diego trying to be brave, at baby Mia who was so quiet. "Rosa," he said softly, "when did you last eat?" The question caught Rosa off guard. She had been ready to talk about her work experience, her skills, how hard she could work. She wasn't ready for kindness. "Yesterday," she lied. It had actually been 2 days, but she didn't want him to think she was too weak to work. Mr. Henderson studied her face and Rosa knew he didn't believe her. And the children? They had crackers last night, Rosa said, which was true. She just didn't mention that the crackers were all they had. Mr. Henderson was quiet for a long moment. Rosa could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. This was it. He would either help them or send them away. She gripped Mia tighter and prepared for either answer. "Tell me about your experience," he finally said. Rosa felt a tiny spark of hope. He wasn't saying no immediately. "I've worked farms for 15 years. I know how to plant, how to harvest, how to fix irrigation problems. I can work from sunrise to sunset. I'm strong and I learn fast. I know you have good equipment here and I can handle all of it." She was talking faster now, desperate to convince him. "I know which plants need more water and which ones don't. I can tell when fruits are ready to pick just by looking at them. I worked the Martinez farm for 3 seasons and helped them increase their tomato yield by 20%. Mr. Henderson nodded, listening carefully. "What about the children? If you're working all day, Anna is responsible. She can watch Diego and help with Mia. Anna's 8 now and she's very smart. Diego listens to her. They won't cause any trouble, I promise." Rosa realized she was begging now, but she didn't care about pride anymore. "I'm not asking for charity, Mr. Henderson. I'm asking for work. I'll earn every meal my children eat. Just give me the chance." Before Mr. Henderson could answer, they heard footsteps behind them. His wife Linda was walking toward them from the house. Rosa had worked with Linda before during harvest time. She was a woman who noticed everything and had a reputation for being direct but fair. Linda took one look at the family, and Rosa saw her expression change immediately. Without saying a word, she walked over to Anna and knelt down. "Hello, sweetheart," she said gently. "Are you hungry?" Anna looked up at her mother for permission. Rosa nodded, her throat too tight to speak. "Yes, ma'am," Anna whispered. Linda stood up and looked at her husband. Rosa saw something pass between them, a silent conversation that only married couples can have. "Rosa," Linda said, "why don't you bring the children to the kitchen while my husband and I discuss this?" Rosa's legs felt weak with relief and terror at the same time. This could be the moment that changed everything. As they walked toward the house, she whispered a prayer she hadn't said since she was Anna's age, asking for just one chance to save her children. Linda's kitchen smelled like fresh bread and coffee. Rosa hadn't smelled anything so wonderful in months. Anna and Diego sat quietly at the big wooden table, their eyes wide as they looked around the warm, bright room. Baby Mia had fallen asleep in Rosa's arms, probably tired from the long walk. "Let me make the children some breakfast," Linda said, already moving toward the stove. Rosa started to protest. "Please, I don't want charity. If you give us work, we'll earn everything we eat." Linda turned around and gave Rosa a look that was both stern and kind. "A hungry child can't wait for paperwork, Rosa. We'll figure out the work details after everyone has food in their stomach." Within minutes, Linda had scrambled eggs cooking in one pan and was warming up leftover pancakes in another. The smell made Rosa's empty stomach growl loudly. She was embarrassed, but Linda pretended not to hear. Mr. Henderson came into the kitchen just as Linda was putting plates in front of Anna and Diego. Rosa watched her children's faces light up as they saw more food than they had eaten in weeks. Anna looked at her mother for permission before taking her first bite. "Go ahead, sweetheart," Rosa whispered. What happened next almost made Rosa cry. Anna took a small, careful bite, then another. She was trying not to eat too fast, trying to be polite. But Rosa could see how hungry her daughter really was. Diego was doing the same thing, taking tiny bites and chewing slowly, trying to make the food last. Mr. Henderson sat down across from Rosa. "My wife and I talked. We'd like to offer you a job, but I want to be clear about what we're looking for." Rosa sat up straighter, shifting sleeping Mia to one arm. "I'm listening." "This isn't charity," he said firmly. "We need someone who can handle our irrigation system. Our regular worker moved to the city last month and we've been managing it ourselves. But with the drought, the system needs constant attention. Someone has to check the water pressure, adjust the timers, and fix problems when they come up." Rosa felt her heart beating faster. This was exactly the kind of work she was good at. I know irrigation systems. I helped install one at the Martinez farm 2 years ago. The job pays $15 an hour, Mr. Henderson continued. You'd work 6 days a week, usually 8 to 10 hours a day, depending on what needs to be done. We'd provide lunch every day, and he looked at the children eating at his table. Dinner for your family every evening. Rosa did quick math in her head. It was more money than she had ever made, plus food for her children every day. It sounded too good to be true. There's a small cabin behind our barn, Linda added. It's not fancy, but it has running water, electricity, and it's clean. You and the children could live there if you want. Rosa felt dizzy. A job, food, and a place to live. It was everything she had hoped for and more. But she had learned to be careful about things that seemed too good to be true. What's the catch? She asked quietly. Mr. Henderson smiled for the first time that morning. The catch is that we need someone reliable. Someone who will show up every day and work hard. Someone who cares about doing the job right. Can you handle that? Rosa looked at her children. Anna had finished her eggs and was carefully eating her pancakes, savoring every bite. Diego had syrup on his chin and was smiling for the first time in weeks. Baby Mia was still sleeping peacefully, but her face looked more relaxed than it had in days. When do I start? Rosa asked. How about right now? Mr. Henderson said. I'll show you the irrigation system while Linda watches the children. You can see if it's something you're comfortable with. For the next 2 hours, Mr. Henderson walked Rosa through every part of their irrigation setup. It was more complex than anything she had worked with before, but Rosa had always been good with mechanical things. She asked questions, took mental notes, and tested her understanding by explaining things back to him. This valve controls the water flow to the tomato section, she said, pointing to a large metal handle. And this gauge shows the pressure. If it goes above 30, there might be a blockage somewhere in the lines. Mr. Henderson nodded, impressed. You're picking this up faster than I expected. Rosa felt proud for the first time in months. I like figuring out how things work, and I want to do a good job for you. They walked back toward the house, and Rosa could hear her children's laughter coming from the kitchen. When they went inside, they found Anna helping Linda wash dishes while Diego played with some wooden blocks on the floor. Baby Mia was awake and sitting in an old high chair, eating small pieces of banana. The children have been wonderful, Linda said. Anna is very responsible, and Diego has been telling me about all the different birds he's seen around your house. Rosa felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the food or the job offer. Her children were safe, fed, and happy. For the first time in months, they looked like normal kids instead of scared, hungry ones. So what do you think? Mr. Henderson asked. Are you interested in the job? Rosa didn't hesitate. Yes, thank you, both of you. I promise you won't regret this. That afternoon, Rosa moved her few belongings and her children into the small cabin behind the barn. It wasn't much bigger than their old place, but it felt like a palace. The refrigerator worked, the shower had hot water, the beds had clean sheets and warm blankets. That evening, as Rosa tucked her children into their new beds, Anna looked up at her with bright eyes. Mama, are we going to be okay now? Rosa kissed her daughter's forehead. Yes, sweetheart, we're going to be just fine. For the first time in months, Rosa believed her own words. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight her children were safe, fed, and sleeping peacefully. Sometimes that's all a mother needs to feel like the richest person in the world. 3 months had passed since Rosa started working for the Henderson family. Every morning she would wake up before dawn and check the irrigation system. Her children were healthier now, with rosy cheeks and bright smiles. Anna had grown an inch taller, and Diego was back to his playful self. Baby Mia was learning new words every day, but not everyone in their small farming community was happy about the arrangement. Rosa first noticed the whispers at the grocery store in town. She was buying supplies with the money she had earned, feeling proud to pay for everything herself. 2 women from church were standing near the vegetables, talking in voices they thought were quiet. I heard she's living on the Henderson farm now, one woman said, getting free housing and meals for her children. "It's not right," the other replied. "The Hendersons are taking advantage of her desperation. They're getting cheap labor while she has nowhere else to go." Rosa felt her face get hot. She wanted to walk over and tell them the truth. She was earning good money, more than she had ever made before. Mr. Henderson treated her with respect, and Linda had become like an older sister to her. But she kept quiet and finished her shopping. The talk got worse over the next few weeks. Some people said Rosa was being exploited. Others whispered that she was lazy and looking for handouts. A few claimed the Hendersons were showing off their wealth by rescuing a poor family. The breaking point came at the monthly town meeting. Rosa usually didn't attend these meetings, but this time the main topic was supporting struggling families in our community. She decided to go and listen. The town hall was packed with farmers, shop owners, and other residents. Mayor Johnson stood at the front, talking about the drought and how it had affected everyone. Then he opened the floor for discussion. Old Mr. Williams, who owned a small farm on the other side of town, stood up first. "I think we need to talk about what's happening at the Henderson place. Taking advantage of desperate people isn't the way to solve our problems." Several heads nodded in agreement. Rosa felt her stomach twist. Mrs. Patterson, who ran the local diner, spoke next. "Rosa Santos is a proud woman. She's always worked hard for everything she has. But now she's trapped in a situation where she has no choice but to accept whatever the Hendersons offer." Rosa couldn't stay quiet anymore. She stood up, her legs shaking slightly. The room fell silent as everyone turned to look at her. "Excuse me," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. "I think you're talking about me, so maybe I should speak for myself." Mayor Johnson nodded. "Of course, Rosa. Please tell us your perspective." Rosa looked around the room at all the faces staring at her. Some looked curious, others seemed uncomfortable. She took a deep breath and began to speak. 3 months ago, my children were going hungry. I had no work because the drought killed all the crops. I spent my last few dollars on crackers and tried to make them last as long as possible. My daughter Anna lost weight. My son Diego was too tired to play. My baby Mia cried all the time because I couldn't produce enough milk to feed her. The room was completely quiet now. Rosa continued, her voice getting stronger with each word. "I didn't want charity. I never asked for handouts. What I asked for was work. I walked to the Henderson farm and offered my skills, my experience, my willingness to work harder than anyone else. In return, I asked them to feed my children," and looked directly at Mr. Williams. "You say they're taking advantage of me. Let me tell you what advantage looks like. I make $15 an hour. That's more than I've ever earned in my life. I work hard for every penny, and I'm proud of the job I do. My children eat nutritious meals every day. We have a safe place to live. And most importantly, I have my dignity because I'm earning everything we receive." Rosa's voice was passionate now. "You want to know what taking advantage really looks like? It's watching your children go hungry while people argue about the right way to help. It's being too proud to ask for work because you're afraid of what people will say. It's letting your babies suffer because you're worried about appearances." She turned to face the entire room. "The Hendersons didn't rescue me. They gave me an opportunity. There's a big difference. I rescue myself every day by getting up before dawn and doing my job well." An uncomfortable silence filled the room. Then slowly, a woman Rosa didn't recognize stood up. "My name is Carmen, and I run a small farm north of here. We've been struggling, too, but not as badly as some others." After hearing Rosa speak, I think we need to change how we look at this problem. Carmen looked around the room. Instead of criticizing what the Hendersons did, maybe we should learn from it. There are other families struggling right now. What if we created a program where people can work for what they need instead of just receiving charity? An older man, named Pete, raised his hand. "I've got equipment that needs maintenance, but I can't afford to hire someone full-time. Maybe I could trade work for food or other necessities." Mrs. Patterson nodded thoughtfully. "The diner always needs help during busy periods. I could offer meals in exchange for dishwashing or cleaning." Soon, people all over the room were talking about skills they had and needs they could meet. Rosa listened in amazement as her simple request for work began to spark a whole new way of thinking about community support. After the meeting, several people came up to Rosa to apologize for making assumptions about her situation. Others asked for advice about setting up work exchange programs in their own businesses. Mr. Henderson, who had been sitting quietly in the back of the room, walked up to Rosa as people were leaving. "I'm proud of you," he said simply. "That took courage." Rosa smiled. "My grandmother always told me that the truth doesn't need to be dressed up, it just needs to be told." As they walked back to the farm together, Rosa reflected on how much had changed. She had started out just trying to feed her children. Now, without meaning to, she had become a voice for a new way of helping people in crisis. Sometimes the most powerful changes begin with one person brave enough to ask for the chance to help themselves. 2 years had passed since that memorable town meeting. Spring had returned to the valley, and for the first time in years, it brought enough rain to fill the streams and revive hope in the farming community. Rosa stood in her own field, watching. The first green shoots of corn pushed through the rich soil. Her own field, her own crops, her own future growing right before her eyes. The small plot of land sat right next to the Henderson farm. Mr. Henderson had helped her lease it when she had saved enough money, and he had taught her everything he knew about soil management and crop rotation. What started as a desperate plea for work had grown into something neither family could have imagined. "Mama, look how tall they're getting," Anna called out from across the field. Her daughter was 12 now, and she had inherited Rosa's green thumb. After school and on weekends, Anna loved working in their little farm, learning which plants needed more water and which ones were ready to harvest. Diego, now 9, was more interested in the mechanical side of farming. He could fix irrigation pipes and adjust water pressure almost as well as his mother. Baby Mia wasn't a baby anymore at 4 years old, but she still followed Rosa everywhere, chattering constantly about everything she saw. Rosa smiled as she watched her children. They were healthy, confident, and happy. Anna was at the top of her class in school. Diego had joined the youth soccer team in town. Mia was learning to read and could already count to 100 in both English and Spanish. The sound of a car pulling up made Rosa look toward the road. A woman with a notebook and camera got out, followed by a man carrying video equipment. Rosa recognized the woman as Kelly Martinez, a reporter from the regional TV station who had called last week asking for an interview. "Mrs. Santos?" Kelly called out, walking carefully between the rows of young plants. "Thank you so much for agreeing to talk with us." Rosa wiped her hands on her work clothes and walked over to meet them. She still felt nervous talking to reporters, but over the past year, more and more people had wanted to hear her story. "It's just Rosa," she said with a smile. "Mrs. Santos makes me sound too formal." Kelly laughed. "Rosa it is. We're doing a story about innovative community programs, and we heard about the work exchange network that started here. Can you tell us how it all began?" Rosa thought back to that night when she had stood up in the town meeting, her voice shaking as she defended her choice to work for what her family needed. "It started with me being stubborn," she said honestly. "I didn't want charity, I wanted work. I guess other people felt the same way." The work exchange program had grown far beyond what anyone expected. Carmen's farm now employed 3 families on a work-for-goods basis. Pete's equipment repair business had expanded to include training programs where people could learn skills while earning what they needed. Mrs. Patterson's diner had become a hub where people could post work opportunities and find help for everything, from childcare to house repairs. "The program has spread to 12 communities now," Kelly said, checking her notes. "What do you think makes it so successful?" Rosa considered the question carefully. "I think it's because people want to feel useful. When you're struggling, the hardest part isn't just the lack of money or food. It's feeling like you don't have anything valuable to offer. This program reminds people that everyone has skills, everyone has something to contribute." As they talked, Rosa noticed Mr. Henderson walking over from his house. At 62, he moved a little slower than he used to, but he still worked alongside Rosa every day. Their partnership had evolved over time. Rosa now managed most of the irrigation systems for both farms, and Mr. Henderson had started growing specialty crops that Rosa had suggested. Don't let her be too modest, Mr. Henderson said as he joined the conversation. Rosa has taught me things about farming that I never learned in 40 years of doing it myself. Our yields have increased every year since she started working here. Kelly turned her camera toward Mr. Henderson. What made you decide to offer Rosa work instead of just giving her family food? Mr. Henderson looked thoughtful. My father always told me that the best way to help someone is to help them help themselves. But honestly, I was nervous at first. I didn't know if it would work out. Rosa proved me right to take the chance. The interview continued for another hour, with Kelly asking about challenges they had faced and plans for the future. Rosa found herself talking about dreams she had never spoken aloud before. She wanted to expand her farm, maybe start growing organic vegetables for restaurants in the city. She wanted to teach other people what she had learned about sustainable farming methods. After the reporters left, Rosa and Mr. Henderson walked through both farms together as they did every evening. It had become their routine, checking on the crops and planning for the next day. Do you ever regret it? Mr. Henderson asked suddenly. Taking that risk? Walking up to my farm that morning? Rosa stopped walking and looked around at everything they had built together. The green fields stretching toward the hills, the irrigation systems humming quietly in the background, her children's laughter echoing from their little house, the comfortable friendship that had grown between two families from very different backgrounds. No, she said firmly. That was the scariest and best decision I ever made. As the sun set behind the mountains, Rosa thought about the woman she had been 2 years ago. Desperate, afraid, running out of options. She had walked to this farm with nothing to offer except her willingness to work and her love for her children. Now she owned her own land, had money in the bank, and had inadvertently started a movement that was helping families across the region. But more than any of that, she had proven something important to herself and her children. When Anna asked her about that difficult time, Rosa always told her the same thing. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for the chance to save yourself. The work exchange program continued to grow, but Rosa knew its real success wasn't measured in numbers or news stories. It was measured in the dignity restored to families who had lost hope. It was measured in children who went to bed with full stomachs because their parents had meaningful work. It was measured in communities that had learned to see strength where they used to see only need. As Rosa tucked her children into bed that night, Mia looked up at her with curious eyes. Mama, what does "I'll work your fields" human mean? Rosa smiled, remembering the desperate words that had changed everything. It means that when things get really hard, we don't give up. We find a way to help ourselves and we ask others to give us that chance. And they said yes? Yes, sweetheart. They said yes. Outside, the night was quiet, except for the gentle sound of water moving through irrigation pipes, carrying life to growing things under the stars.